What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Sonic Month video. And today, we have a pretty cool one for you guys today. Yesterday, we took a look we did a tier list of all the Sonic characters. Not all of them, but, just the most significant. And today, I'm going to be ranking all the Sonic eras from worst to best. We've had 5 so far. And some I'm going to do a little bit of leeway and talk about other stuff within them because I think 5 makes for a long enough video. And that's just what I think about it. So, yep. Also, congrats if you are on Patreon and watching this early. And if not, then well, just welcome. Thank you for giving me just a little bit of your time to talk about Sonic again. But I'm going to be doing this with the screen recorder, no face cam. This is just going to be me explaining a lot of it. So if that bores you, I'm not going to blame you if you skip this video. But just a heads up. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get started with the ranking. This is my personal ranking of all 5 Sonic eras from worst to best. Enjoy. Alright, so starting out at the bottom of the list, the worst of the eras. I hate to say it, but it's the Meta era. I pretty much agree with everyone else on this one. I don't think the Meta era is as bad as most people say, but it is still pretty bad. Let's start by going over the games that are in this era so far. We have, well, it started with Sonic Colors, which was a great game. Then it went into Lost World. Sorry, I'm trying to remember them all. Then Generations, that was a good one. And then Sonic Forces. And then it's going to continue onwards or restart entirely to a new era when Frontiers comes out in November. But until then, this is the meta era that we have right now. I don't think Roger Craig Smith is a bad Sonic. Like, he has never been a bad Sonic. I've never gotten the hate behind him. Does he sound a little old for the role? Sure. But he does a good job with Sonic's mannerisms, his cocky, arrogant attitude. And he does do well in the role. Has he done it for a bit too long? Yes. He has done it for way longer than he should. But I don't hate him. And I respect him for sticking with this series despite all the lows it hit, especially in this era. In other eras where the writing was usually... this series has always been geared mostly towards kids, but there's always been a little hint of adult writing that made it more impactful, per se. And this meta era was just aimed directly at kids. There's a lot of immature humor, pee jokes, poop jokes, whatever you want to call it. Few puns that are going to make you roll your eyes, and just a lot of really under par writing. And not to mention, it also has a really bad habit of making terrible new villains that may have cool designs, but their execution and character is lacking. Such as, again, the Dastardly Six, or whatever they're called. I don't even care what they're called, to be honest with you. And, of course, Infinite, which I went on to a pretty decently long tangent when I made that list yesterday. So I'm not going to indulge in it, but needless to say, he was a disappointment. If Frontiers is still meta era, it has the possibility to turn it around, open world game, story written by the IDW comics writer, because the writer of all these games has finally been fired. Thank you. And it just has a lot of problems. But again, with Frontiers, it's looking brighter than it ever has before. So I can't say I outright despise this era, but I do hate it a decent bit. It is not garbage by any. It is not like bottom barrel garbage by any means. I've seen way, way worse. But in terms of Sonic, it is by far the weakest one, and I hope that Frontiers helps turn it around. Otherwise, it's going to stay as the worst era of the entire franchise. Is it overhated? Yes, but calling this anything but the worst era of Sonic's entire history would just be an understatement. Yes, we got colors. Yes, we got generations. But Lost World was a disappointment, and Forces is a guilty pleasure game at best. So, yep, that's what I think about that. Definitely the worst era of Sonic. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to number 4. Oh boy. Okay. I don't hate Sonic Boom, okay? I didn't mind all the redesigns of the characters. I liked Amy's, and Sonic's wasn't that bad. Tails was okay, kind of made sense for his character. Knuckles is the one that really ticked me off. They have been attached to, of course, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, one of the worst video games ever made by humankind. And then the mediocre Shadow Crystal and, good but forgettable Fire and Ice. So why is it above the meta era? Well, because I think the show is not that bad. It starts out kind of mediocre in the first season, but starting with season 2 onward, it actually got really good and had some really smart, self-aware, sharp writing. That was sorely lacking. That's why it's above the meta era. The writing is much better. Mostly. Yes, there are things about it I still really do not like. Like I said, season 1 is a bit of a mediocre slog. I hate what they did to Knuckles. Not only his character design, but his actual character being dumber than a rock. I absolutely hate that stereotype. And just a lot of really baffling, strange decisions. But Sonic was still Sonic. I actually think Amy is pretty much better than any incarnation we've gotten of her. She's like her own character, has her own personality, and isn't just mindlessly chasing Sonic around anymore, which is nice. And while I don't like Shadow's voice actor that they have nowadays, I really liked him in Boom. His design wasn't that bad, and he had some pretty cool moments, like the moment when he took on the entire team, which was really, really cool. Still one of Shadow's most awesome moments. But overall, this is still a very, very messy era, and yeah, a lot of people were just trying to forget this even exists. And I'm gonna say, just outside of the show, I'm probably gonna do the same. So, it's above the meta era, but it's still not great. It's okay. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. Now, from here on out, these next 3 eras are ones I legitimately like. So, let's stop some negativity for now and get some positivity in here and speed ahead to number 3. Oh boy. The Sonic Adventure era. Featuring some of the best stories in the entire series, some of the best games in the whole series, and is the definitive modern 3D Sonic, in my opinion. Sonic was voiced by Ryan Drummond and Jason Griffith. There was a bigger story, a larger scope. Everyone had a purpose. It wasn't just run to the end and that's it. It had an actual like story and plot to it, which is nice and easily puts it above the last 2 eras. And I'm just gonna go ahead and throw Sonic X in here as well, because unlike Boom, X was kind of just an anime version of the adventure era stuff. So I'm just gonna count X as the adventure era stuff. So it's not its own entry because I don't think it's really significant enough to really have its own entry. But that's also one of the reasons why it's number 3 on this list. As you guys may or may not already know, that I've told a million times, I loved Sonic X, and it was what made me into the Sonic fan that I am now. Like, without the Adventure era, I would not be the Sonic fan I am right now. I would not be making these videos or anything like that, so that alone gets its spots on this list. So if I have so much high praise to say about this Adventure era, why is it only number 3? Well, a few reasons. First of all, there were some really bad games in this era. 06 and Secret Rings, to name a few. And replaying the Adventure 2 now, while I still love the story overall, it has a million plot holes. Like, a million. Like, I will not at all defend that. There is like a million plot holes and a million things that could have been fixed. And Adventure 1 has not aged very well. That game and that whole story pretty much has aged like milk. But I still love this era, man. This is still one of my favorite eras of Sonic. This was the era of Sonic that I grew up in, which is pretty much almost the golden era. There's one era above it that we'll get to later. But it's really cool. And let's not forget the introduction of 2 of my all-time favorite characters in the entire Sonic franchise, Rouge the Bat and Shadow the Hedgehog. Yeah, I mean, that's all I need to say. We all know the Adventure era is an awesome era of Sonic, and while it was flawed and had its problems, it was still just a blast to live in and be through. Oh wait, almost forgot the bad games as Sonic Heroes. Yeah, that happened in this era too. But aside from those problems, I still really like this era. I definitely think it's one of the best times of Sonic's entire career. But it has its problems, and some things about it have definitely not aged very well. And let us not forget the travesty that is Sonic 06. But aside from that, I still love this era. I still think it's really cool, and I really hope at some point we get an Adventure 3, because I would love to see this storyline continue. That'll probably never happen, but let a guy dream, alright? And with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Yep. Like this should surprise any of you. The classic era is above all the modern eras. But why is it number 2? I'll explain in a minute. The classic era is what made Sonic Sonic. Like, it was the cocky, arrogant attitude of the 90s. It was different than Mario. And it was Sega's flagship that finally got them the success they wanted in North America with Alex Kidd that just never happened. But the classic era of Sonic is not only the longest lasting era, mostly because of Generations and Mania, but it is also the most respected era out of all the Sonic games, because the original trilogy is still considered some of the best games of all time, not just for the Sega Genesis. And I'm definitely part of that crowd. Sonic 3 was the first video game I ever played, and while it took me until X to really get into the series itself, I still loved Sonic 3, and I still do to this day. I still hold it in very high regard. But this era also has its fair share of problems. Let me think. Sonic Labyrinth, Sonic Drift 2, Sonic Blast. Yeah. Oh, and let's not forget Sonic R. Yeah, this era has had some pretty bad games. Oh, and 3D Blast. 3D Blast, Knuckles Chaotix. Yep, there has been a lot of bad games in this era, but there's been so many amazing ones in here too that it's almost like a scar and barely even worth mentioning. Classic Sonic is classic for a very good reason. Not only is his design absolutely iconic, but his personality was different. He really stood out above everything else that was out around that time in the gaming world. And he was the only franchise that could actually give Mario a run for his money back then. He was that popular and that good. If it weren't for this era, not only would we not even have Sonic, but he would not be as popular as he is today. The classic era is amazing. And I really hope we get Sonic Mania 2 or more games with classic Sonic, because I love this era and I definitely consider it one of the best. But because it has so many bad games that spring to mind when I think about it, and some plot holes, even though the stories weren't really, this wasn't really a story-driven series yet, it was still noticeable. And some aspects about it have not aged very well. But all those minor nitpicks and gripes aside, I still love this era of Sonic, and it is easily top 2. What's number 1? I'm going to tick off a lot of you by saying it, but here we go. My number 1 era of Sonic the Hedgehog is... Yep, this is not a joke. I consider the best era out of the entire series, without a doubt, the current movie era. Even though it's kind of its own entity, but whatever. You can call this recency bias. You can even call it me being a fanboy. But there is no doubt about it. This movie franchise is incredible. Not only its amazing story that we're going to talk about in another video later down this month, but just also how amazing it truly is. In only one movie and trailers for 2, they've been able to build a fantastic, interesting, fascinating world. Sonic has a great design. Ben Schwartz is an amazing choice for the role, and he always does a great job. Jim Carrey is possibly the best Robotnik that we've ever gotten. Yes, that is including Mike Pollock. The story, while having its fair share of holes, is also very, very strong. And it was able to just... the way it was able to world build off of one movie is insane. And with Sonic Movie 2, the world's only expanding and getting bigger and bigger. Now adding Colleen O'Shaughnessy's Tails and Idris Elba's Knuckles, along with the Chaos Emeralds, the Master Emerald, Angel Island, and a ton of other things. The Sonic movie series is going to be the most epic of these eras, and it's not even half of a contest. Like, this era is just amazing, and I am all on board for whatever they decide to do. I am hyped for Sonic 2, and I'm really excited to see where this franchise goes. And that is why it is, in my opinion, the best era of Sonic that we have ever gotten, and possibly ever will get. And that's it. That is the entire video. Thank you guys for watching. If you think that these should be ranked differently, feel free to leave your comments down below. And if there's any ways that I can, improve my video making or anything like that, I am all ears, and I'm more than happy to hear some feedback. And if you're watching this on Patreon, congratulations for getting it early. And if you're watching on YouTube, well, just thank you for watching, and thank you for giving me some of your time. I can't talk today. But thank you for watching. That's the end of this video. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And stay tuned for another Sonic Month video coming tomorrow. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Jack Small of Animation Station, and I'll see you next time.